would like you to try and address those two terms and clarify them, and use your congregation there as where you have moved them from and to in regards to those two concepts.
Okay. So what's happening for us at Unity Spiritual Center, and Jane can chime in too, is that we're just right now really explicitly developing those two values, ownership and partnership. And so part of why is, I mean, in the sense of evolving the culture of the church, those values don't really become actualized until there's a level of emotional and spiritual maturity within the community, because it requires a different level of ownership is connected to a kind of personal integrity. And that doesn't come online unless a person has a depth of maturity with respect to what matters to them. And so that's why the Q process is integral to as a foundation. And so our effort to bring people into greater ownership is we talk about ownership, but we talk about it in the context first of owning our journey, owning what matters to us. It's a value that we are developing. And so and also we talk about when we are looking at funding our organizations, we talk about our owners as opposed to our supporters. And so part of the challenge is that we have to differentiate membership from ownership, because right now members aren't necessarily owners, but ultimately owners and membership must be equanimous. It must mean the same thing, but it doesn't mean the same thing at our church yet. But it's moving in that direction through our membership system. But suffice to say that the partnership piece is the harder one to create, because the board tends to be the hardest cultural dynamic to shift. In part because it's so established, and the turnover is too great, and with absent of board training, there's no real kind of bringing people into the fold in alignment, and so there's some learning curve, but that's changing for us. Anyway, so the partnership piece is one in which the board partners with the governing members to fund the organization, and that's in the context of the board seeing the governing members as their partner. But that just doesn't happen by virtue of the name or principle. There actually has to be the felt experience that the community feels as if they're partners with the leaders of the church, and the leaders depend upon the governing members for understanding and engaging the effort to bring forth what we're all in this together trying to create. You see, part of what is missing also in our minister-centric model is that we're not partnering necessarily for the purpose of creating the fulfillment of our purpose. In a sense, we're partnering to try to survive, and that doesn't become a basis of really unleashing our possibilities. And so part of what our board has had to do is had to learn how to have different conversations with the community around issues of money or issues of what's happening in terms of our future. And so we've had to shift from getting more, trying to get people to give more, to inviting people to do what they can do. Not doing what they're doing, but doing what they can do in the context of their owning what we're trying to create together, and their willingness to partner with the leaders that are trying to facilitate that. So as I talk about ownership and partnership, it becomes clear for me and clear for those who are also in the conversation. So this is why part of what I do with most of my clients is also work with their boards, to kind of help them develop the story, the narrative around what the journey is, what the effort is. Because if we don't, as ministry leaders, have a sense of what we're trying to create that will come to be 3 or 4 years down the road, that will be an antidote to what's happening in the world today, in the sense of our capacity to thrive in these times. If we're not in the intent to make that come about, if we can't explain what that effort is, so everybody sees, oh, I can do this, I can participate in this, then we're not tapping into that part of what makes partnership and ownership really come alive.
If I could add something here, it's a process, definitely. But one day a woman came to us in the office and said, I finally am getting what partnership means, and I want to talk to you about that. And she wanted to offer something that she does, which is going out into forests and foraging for mushrooms. She takes people out on these tours and they pay her money to do it. And so she said, I want to do that and have all the money go to the church. And I want to start something where I gather people together to talk about what they can do as owners of this community and this mission to be a part of it. And so it was really helpful for me, actually, to see someone who'd seen ownership in that light. Like, I want to be a part of this mission. I want to be a part of this community. I want to contribute, and here's how I can do it. And so it widened my perspective on what it could mean to be in ownership. So it's financially, but it's also much more spiritually and emotionally, being a part of something greater and having your way of contributing. And so I got very inspired after she did that. I went on the trip with her and found some mushrooms, and there was something magical about that whole trip, because it was benefiting the church, but it was also having her share her gifts in a way that she was just really shining and being who she's come here to be. And it was a reciprocal benefit. So I see the ownership as going way beyond just your typical, here's my check, and I'm going to come on Sunday. It's really owning it and contributing in a way that is uniquely yours.